2009, Barry-Wehmiller faced the financial crisis. Revenue dropped 30% almost overnight. The board and CFO came to Bob Chapman with a recommendation: layoffs. Chapman refused. Instead, he instituted a mandatory furlough, 4 weeks of unpaid leave, shared equally across every employee from CEO to the production floor. He said it was better that everyone suffered a little than for any one person to suffer a lot. And then he ran the numbers to prove it. It was financially rational, not just morally right. And that's what we're auditing today. Hello, my name is Todd Hagopian, the original Stagnation Assassin and the author of The Unfair Advantage and The Stagnation Assassin on Amazon. But today, we're going to pull the leadership file on Bob Chapman, CEO of Barry-Wehmiller Companies, and specifically his no layoffs philosophy and the financial architecture that makes it a business decision, not just a values decision. This is not a tribute, it's a forensic audit. So let's see what he actually did here. The leadership stagnation score in the manufacturing industry during the 2008 and 2009 recession was at least an 8 out of 10 on the corporate cancer scale. The disease was the industry's reflexive treatment of labor as the first variable cost to cut when revenue dropped. A short-term optimization that destroyed long-term organizational capability, customer relationships, and institutional knowledge. Now, Barry-Wehmiller operated in this environment, but they refused the disease. So let's do the forensic audit and see what Chapman actually got right here. The furlough architecture. 4 weeks of unpaid leave per person spread across all employees produced savings equivalent to what a significant layoff would have generated without the institutional knowledge destruction, the rehiring costs, the retraining costs, or the survivor syndrome that decimates productivity after layoffs. Chapman ran the actual numbers. In most manufacturing environments, the fully loaded cost of losing a skilled employee, recruitment, selection, onboarding, training to full productivity runs between 50 and 200% of annual salary. When you lay off a skilled worker in a downturn, you are paying that reconstitution cost on the way back up. The furlough model eliminates that cost. It's not charity, it's capital allocation discipline applied to human assets. The cultural compounding: employees who survive a furlough at a company that treated them with dignity during a crisis become the most productive and loyal workforce in their industry. Chapman's employees didn't leave during the recovery. They stayed. They produced. The cultural return on the furlough decision compounded for years. This is the HOT system applied to human capital. Honest assessment of the full cost of layoffs, including reconstitution. Objective evaluation of alternatives and transparent communication about the shared sacrifice that everyone was going to be participating in. Barry-Wehmiller's acquisition integration model is equally instructive. Chapman acquires troubled manufacturing companies and applies his leadership philosophy to the cultures that have been previously beaten down. The turnaround mechanism isn't financial engineering, it's restoring dignity to organizations that had it stripped in the past. And it works financially. The company grew from 20 million in revenue to over 3 billion in revenue. But let's look at the murder board. What did Chapman get wrong? The Barry-Wehmiller model is extraordinarily difficult to replicate in a publicly traded company where quarterly earnings and pressure create structural incentives for headcount reduction, regardless of the CEO's values. Chapman's model works in the specific governance context of a private company where the CEO has the structural authority to make multi-year human capital investments without the shareholder pressure for immediate returns. The transferability problem: Chapman had been a magnificent evangelist for his model, but the evangelical approach doesn't change the structural incentive architecture that makes it nearly impossible for public company CEOs to replicate, regardless of their values. His greatest limitation is not in his company, it's in the structural environment that makes his philosophy so rare outside of it. Stagnation verdict here: Easy. 5 kills out of 5, which we don't get very often in his specific governance context. Chapman built one of the most coherent and financially defensible human-first leadership models in American manufacturing history. The furlough innovation alone earns top marks. He solved the financial crisis question of labor cost reduction through a mechanism that was more economically rational than conventional layoffs and more humane than any other alternative. Study Chapman for the financial architecture of human capital investment, and then fight like hell to build the governance structure that gives you the authority to apply it. That's your forensic audit on Bob Chapman and Barry-Wehmiller. Remember to grab The Unfair Advantage and Stagnation Assassin on Amazon. Go to toddhagopian.com for the world's largest stagnation database. I'm Todd Hagopian. People are not variable costs. They are the asset. And assets that you trust, that you deliver returns, that balance sheets can never capture.